June 28, 1914. A Sunday in Sarajevo. A 19-year-old boy stands on a street corner, holding a pistol. He isn't a king, a general, or a politician, but in a few seconds, he will pull the trigger, and the world as we know it will cease to exist. 2 shots, 2 deaths, and a domino effect that would drag 70 million soldiers into a meat grinder, collapse 4 mighty empires, and leave 20 million people dead. This is not just a story of soldiers in trenches. This is the story of how humanity's progress collided with its darkest instincts. This is the story of the Great War. To understand 1914, we have to travel back to a world that felt permanent. To the people living in London, Paris, or Berlin, this was the golden age. Science was curing diseases, electricity was lighting up cities, and the first cinema screens were flickering to life. People believed that humanity had become too civilized, too connected by trade, to ever go to war again. But under this beautiful mask, Europe was rotting. Let's look at the players. First, Great Britain, the undisputed master of the seas. Their empire covered a quarter of the globe, but they were nervous. Across the North Sea, a new power was rising, Germany. Germany was a young, aggressive nation. Their leader, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was a man of deep insecurities. He wanted Germany to have a place in the sun. He began building a massive navy to challenge Britain. This started an arms race, a Cold War of the early 20th century. Every battleship Britain built, Germany tried to build too. Then there was France. France was obsessed with revenge. In 1871, Germany had defeated them and taken their provinces of Alsace-Lorraine. For 40 years, French schoolchildren were taught to look at the map and dream of the day they would take their land back. In the east, there was the Russian steamroller, a massive empire of peasants and soldiers led by Tsar Nicholas II. Russia was slow to modernize, but its sheer size terrified the Germans. And finally, the sick man of Europe, Austria-Hungary, a crumbling empire of 11 different nationalities, Czechs, Slovaks, Serbs, Italians, all wanting to break free. These nations didn't trust each other, so they built a web of secret alliances. Germany and Austria promised to fight together. France and Russia did the same. Britain had a moral understanding with France. It was a giant suicide pact. If one country tripped, the whole continent would fall into the abyss. Now, let's go back to that Sunday in Sarajevo. The man in the car was Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austrian throne. He was a moderate man who actually wanted to give more rights to the minorities in his empire. But to the Serbian nationalists, he was a symbol of oppression. Waiting for him were 6 young assassins from a group called the Black Hand. They were amateurs, mostly teenagers with tuberculosis who felt they had nothing to lose. They were armed with outdated bombs and pistols. 10:10 a.m. As the Archduke's car drove along the river, the first assassin lost his nerve. The second one threw a bomb. It bounced off the Archduke's car and exploded under the car behind him, wounding several officers. The Archduke, remarkably calm, shouted, "So this is how you welcome your guests?" He reached the town hall, but he was shaken. He decided to cancel the rest of his trip and go to the hospital to visit the wounded men. This was the fatal decision. Nobody told the drivers about the new route. As they drove back, the lead driver took a wrong turn into a narrow street. The Archduke's driver, following him, realized the mistake and hit the brakes. The car stopped. The engine stalled, and there, standing on the sidewalk, was Gavrilo Princip. He had just bought a sandwich and was thinking the assassination had failed. Suddenly, his target was sitting right in front of him, 5 feet away, unable to move. Princip didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and fired 2 shots. One hit the Archduke in the neck, the other hit his wife, Sophie, in the stomach. As the Archduke sped away, the Archduke was heard whispering, "Sophie, Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." They were both dead before they reached the palace. Princip tried to swallow a cyanide pill, but it was old and only made him vomit. He tried to shoot himself, but the crowd tackled him. He was 19 years old. He thought he was a hero for Serbia. He had no idea he had just started a fire that would burn the whole world. Then there was France. France was obsessed with revenge. In 1871, Germany had defeated them and taken their provinces of Alsace-Lorraine. For 40 years, French schoolchildren were taught to look at the map and dream of the day they would take their land back. In the east, there was the Russian steamroller, a massive empire of peasants and soldiers led by Tsar Nicholas II. Russia was slow to modernize, but its sheer size terrified the Germans. And finally, the sick man of Europe, Austria-Hungary, a crumbling empire of 11 different nationalities, Czechs, Slovaks, Serbs, Italians, all wanting to break free. These nations didn't trust each other, so they built a web of secret alliances. Germany and Austria promised to fight together. France and Russia did the same. Britain had a moral understanding with France. It was a giant suicide pact. If one country tripped, the whole continent would fall into the abyss. For the next month, the world held its breath. This period is known as the July Crisis. In Vienna, the generals were happy. They finally had an excuse to crush Serbia. But they were afraid of Russia, so they sent a message to Berlin. Kaiser Wilhelm II was on his yacht, enjoying his summer vacation. In a moment of impulsive anger over the death of his friend, the Archduke, he gave Austria a blank check. He told them, "Germany will support you, no matter what you do." This was the spark in the powder keg. Austria sent an ultimatum to Serbia, 10 demands designed to be so insulting that Serbia would have to refuse. To everyone's surprise, Serbia agreed to 9 of them. They only refused to let Austrian police enter their territory. It wasn't enough for the war-hungry generals. On July 28th, Austria-Hungary's declared war on Serbia. Now, the machine of alliances began to grind. Russia, seeing their Slavic brothers attacked, began to mobilize their army. Germany, seeing Russia move, panicked. Their only plan for war was the Schlieffen Plan. It was a plan based on timing. They had to defeat France in 6 weeks so they could turn around and fight Russia. August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. August 3rd, Germany declares war on France. But there was one obstacle: Belgium. Belgium was neutral. They didn't want any part of this, but the German plan required them to march through Belgium to reach Paris. When the Germans crossed the border, they broke a treaty that had stood for 75 years. This was the scrap of paper that brought the British Empire into the war. Britain couldn't allow a hostile power to control the Belgian ports. On August 4th, at midnight, Great Britain declared war on Germany. The dominoes had all fallen.
In London, the British Foreign Secretary, Sir Edward Grey, stood at his window as the sun set. He looked out at the street lamps and said, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." He was right. Across Europe, millions of young men were marching to the train stations. They were singing, they were laughing, they were throwing flowers. They thought it would be a short, glorious adventure. They truly believed they would be home by Christmas. They didn't know that they were marching into a nightmare that would last 1,500 days. They didn't know about the mud, the gas, or the machine guns. The Golden Age was over. The Great War had begun. Next, in part 2, we follow these young men into the earth. We witness the birth of the trenches, the hell of the Western Front, and the moment the world realized that this war would not be over by Christmas.